Hi, and welcome to the Reclamation Project podcast. We are so glad that you're here, that you're listening, and hopefully that you are a part of the conversation. Today, we're starting a new series. Last week, we kind of finished up our series talking about trials and hardships and persecution. And at the end of that podcast, we talked about how we're going to start having people come in and talking about some of the trials and the hardships that they've been going through. And hopefully that people who are going through that same trial or that same trying time would be able to glean something from their story. And so that is what we're doing today. And so we have our first guest in. This is a little bit new for Gary and I, trying to figure out how do we do this and how do we have people tell their stories and how do we not talk so much.
That'll be hard. That's going to be the hard part.
That will be difficult. So today we have Sabrina in. So Sabrina, you've recently gone through a trying time and it's been a tough time. We thank you so much for coming in and for sharing it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we love to have stories like this, and we love to tell stories like this. And it's been a little bit trying for you over the last couple months. And so I guess maybe the best place to start is to just talk about your story from the beginning. As you were growing up, just kind of let people in on how you grew up, what you thought going into growing up about what marriage looked like and what you planned on as we know little girls often plan their weddings at 5 years old.
Yep.
My daughter's already doing so. What were your thoughts on that, and what did you kind of think growing up this time of your life would be like?
And maybe a little bit about what you had modeled for you as far as mom and dad and their marriage. Was it typical? Was it not? So yeah, share a little bit about your...
Well, actually, growing up, I didn't have that. I didn't plan this dream wedding. I never really thought much about the wedding part of it. I always wanted to get married and have a family and kids. I came from the youngest of 4 siblings. Wow. They've all had kids, never married. So here I'm going to be 30 years old, and I wanted to do it not necessarily the right way, but I wanted to do it a different way than they all did it. And I found my partner, and I wanted to get married and have kids. That was the next thing. And we both came from divorced families. Our parents were both married twice and divorced. And so that was my fear, but I never let that take over things. I wanted to do it. I wanted to
just do it differently, you said, yeah.
So I knew that, getting married was going to be work, and I was willing to put that work in. I wasn't going to settle.
So were you worried about what your siblings would say? I mean, you were obviously going to break the mold, or were they supportive of or did they even know what you had in mind as far as doing it different? And
no, they were very supportive. I mean, I feel like at times they would give me a hard time, like, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to meet someone? But I was picky, and I was okay with that.
Did you ever feel the pressure, though? Like, were you tempted to settle because of what everybody had an expectation for you?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And what did you say to yourself not to settle? Like, it was tempting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I just told myself I wasn't going to settle. I wanted to make sure that I met somebody that can support themselves, that they were going to be loving and caring towards me.
Yeah.
So I...
Were you having a hard time finding a guy that fit that mold?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys are jerks. And you can edit that out if you like. But having been a guy, no, I'm still a guy. Having been a jerk, I would say that. So how hard did you look, or did you want this all to be organic? I'm just going to find a guy, or did you go the route that a lot of people do, Christian mingle, eHarmony, all that stuff?
My early 20s, I definitely was looking for it. But then I started ultrasound school and got through that. And then I finally got to a point in my life where I'm like, I'm okay with being single.
Good.
I went to the movies. I did things alone, and I was okay with it. I wasn't going to look for it. I wanted to just let it happen. And sure enough, shortly after that is when I met Kevin.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. So the fact that you didn't look and found him, that kind of felt right, didn't it?
Yes.
So then you've gone through this pickiness, this being very selective, and then you find the guy, and that's the guy that meets and checks all the boxes. So what did that look like? How did that come about, and how did that relationship blossom?
Well, I actually knew him from the town, from Globe, and a mutual friend, a good friend of mine, ended up working with him, and we met for dinner one evening. I knew of him from years ago, so we reconnected that way, and ever since we started going on dates and movies and everything. It was just so easy. Even we started, I think, living together within 5-6 months, and didn't have any fights. It was so easy with us, and we had a great time together. And then it was about, I want to say, a year and a half is when he proposed.
Yeah. So in that easiness, was it, were there red flags that you had to overlook, or you were just kind of like, air quote, I'm doing air quotes for our listeners out there, you were in love, so you didn't see them? Tell me about easy. What does that mean? It was so easy.
Yes, we didn't fight about anything. We had a lot of fun together, laughs.
He was attentive to you?
He was.
Yeah.
And at that point, there wasn't any red flags.
Yeah. So there wasn't really any red flags till he proposed?
It was after he proposed and we set a wedding date.
Yeah.
And then he
Which is when I met you. I met you both. Yeah.
Yes.
So the wedding date is when his colon clenched and he started to get nervous.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then he decided to postpone
Yes. Yeah.
the wedding.
Tell a little bit about that. So here I am. The guy proposes to me, and I think everything I wanted. And then he comes to you and says what?
That he, gosh, what did he even really say? That he just wanted to hold off on the wedding. He felt like we were rushing into it, and he just wanted a little more time.
So what did you say? What does a girl say to herself? What's their internal talk when that happens? Because it must be me. I'm not. Did you do any of those?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Give
me your top 2 anti-Sabrina thoughts in that.
Yeah, it was, what's wrong with me? Do you not want to be with me? So I was doubting myself and if he even really wanted to be with me.
Yeah. Which is weird because you just said how confident you were prior to meeting him. You were doing things on, you felt good about yourself,
right.
And now a relationship changed all that.
Right. Or even, after he proposed, we right away went to check out venues and, wanted to pick the date. And he very much had a big part in that, wanted to do that, was excited about it. So I'm thinking,
wow, this is it.
Yeah. I didn't rush it all. He wanted, the wedding as well.
So he said, I want to postpone it. And that's when you met me. You guys came to me for counseling. And because we already started off with this is a hardship, that's no reflection on the counseling. Let me just say that to myself as I needed to self-plug that. So, and I'm trying to remember how long the separation was. Was it almost a year? Or?
Well, we weren't separated. We separated for maybe a month. But then we postponed. We held off for about a good year.
On the from the marriage. Yeah.
Until we picked a new wedding date.
Yeah.
So you guys have broken up. You've gone through this month's separation. What did that month separation look like? And then what brought you back to the fold? What brought you back and said, okay, let's do this again? Either you or him. What brought you back to that point where you guys came back together and decided to give it another go?
Well, that month for me was extremely hard. That was my first heartbreak. I felt like I was like, what am I going to do next? We're done. We were going to start planning a wedding. And within a couple of weeks, or probably the week that we talked, I finally said, you know what? I need to move on. I'm not going to wait around for him, because I felt like I was waiting, like, are we done? Or are we not done? And so when we met to talk, I had it in my head that, when we go talk, if he can't give me an answer that he wants to be with me, then I just need to move on. I'm not going to wait. And then, we ended up talking, and he said he wanted to be with me. He didn't want to lose me. And that's pretty much how we started again, and I moved back in with him.
Did you have any kind of gut feelings at that point that, okay, you know what, I said that if he gives me this reason, I'll get back together, but I don't feel like it's as good of a place as I thought it would be, or
like
did
it
you
was
say,
the right words, but the feeling didn't hook.
Yeah. Did you feel at all trepidatious about going in that direction, or did you feel like it was a natural flow? Okay, I'm ready to get back.
No, with him. I definitely was a little apprehensive. I wanted to question things, and question him, like, are you sure? Next week, is he going to change his mind again? So definitely for a while, I had those fears.
Did you have self-doubt because of that, or was that a point where you were more fearful of him? Did it make you walk on eggshells around him because of that?
Yes, it was definitely self-doubt, that I felt like he was questioning me and just still unsure if he wanted to be with me. It's like, I want you to move back in. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know that.
Yeah. From a counseling perspective, people do this. They train you how to treat them. And so kind of from my vantage point up in the bleachers looking at this, he kind of trained you like not to question him, because then he would always flip it and you're pressing, you're
Yes.
overeager,
Very
you're
much.
even maybe a B word sometimes because you can't let that go. So
Yes.
the eggshells came as he's trained you not to ask those questions that you felt your heart and your gut wanted to ask.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Yes.
So in this is the period you said you saw some red flags.
Yes.
Start listing for us, because there's a girl out there that is understanding that there are red flags and she doesn't know what they look like yet. So you're going to help her. What were some of the red flags you saw now?
I just feel like he was spending more time away from home. Always
Like looking for a reason not to be home?
Right, looking
Yep.
for a reason. He was working late. He was on the road all the time with his job, and so I feel like he was gone later into the evening and on his phone a lot more. And so at that point, I wish I would have questioned it and said something, and I didn't.
Why didn't you? How did you reconcile it to yourself, to rationalize it to yourself that, hey, this is okay, it's not something to be alarmed about?
Because I wanted to be with him, and because I wanted that wedding to happen and us to be together. And so it's okay. It's not, it's not what I'm thinking. I'm overthinking it.
Yeah.
And if I
So you
question
doubted
it-
yourself
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. And if I question it, we may fight and break up, and then the wedding won't happen.
Right.
So the wedding became more important than the relationship. And it was also at that time, I think you were a little frustrated because you were actually, my opinion, you were giving a lot more of the relationship than he was.
Yes.
You gave emotional, mental, physical, and you were supporting him starting a new business.
Yes.
Yeah, and what did that mean to you? I mean, how did you helping him start that business? What were the hardships on you for that? Well, it's your credit, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was just a huge step for me to put things under my name for him.
Yeah.
But in that time, I love this person. I'm going to do anything I can to help them and support them.
Yeah. So with that, did you feel like it was more of you guys were both buying into each other, that you were now sharing this burden of this business with your credit, his, it being his business? Did you feel like there was more buy-in, that it was more natural, that it was more cohesive, and therefore you felt like it was more of a sturdy relationship because of that?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I feel like I was invested and so was he. And that I felt like he wanted me a part of it. So that made me feel better.
Yeah.
More solidified.
Yes.
More concrete
Right.
in this relationship because of that.
Right.
Okay.
But in those moments of being alone at night or whatever, and you stop and think, were there conflicting thoughts like, I believe that, but there's like a gut feeling that doesn't feel that? Did you ever at that time experience that? Like,
Yes.
This doesn't feel right. I can't
Yes.
put my finger on it. But again, not enough to go investigate where this feeling was coming
Right.
from. Yeah.
Right.
So if I remember the story, and I should because I was part of it at that point, as it got closer to the expiration of the time you set with the venue and the money, he decided what? He got your you didn't have a ring at that time either, did you?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did have a ring.
And did he make you give it back, or did you keep it? You chose not to wear it.
Yeah, I didn't wear it. I gave it back to him.
Yeah, okay.
But then when we, the month of being apart, when we got back together,
Yeah.
he gave it back to me and said, I want you to put this on and wear it when you're ready.
So I think I asked you guys this when we did some premarital counseling, is in this time, were there any of your friends or family, people that loved Sabrina? Was anybody saying, check yourself, watch yourself, I wouldn't do this? Or was everybody pretty outwardly supportive?
There was a couple of family members and a friend that, definitely, they didn't like something about Kevin they didn't agree with.
Yeah.
But they were supporting me, and that's what I wanted to do. So I think now, after everything's happened,
Looking back, yeah.
more the family and friends are saying, I wish I would have said something because I didn't feel good about it.
Yeah. And what was those things they said? I mean, when they listed a point and you saw that point, again, according to Jeremy's question, you had to find a way to rationalize that away. Kind of the same thing. I better not investigate it, or this may not work.
Right.
Yeah. So as the story goes, then he came to you, and if I remember, he always kind of made it seem like you were pushing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that way too?
No, and I'm not that type of person, and I didn't want, I kind of let it go. I would rarely bring it up.
Yeah.
There was only like once or twice that I mentioned, like, hey, have you given it thought? Do you want to reschedule this? Do you not? But yes, he very much wanted to say that I was pushy about it.
That's the last thing you want to do, is put somebody's hand behind their neck and force them to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it happen to where he decided, all right, let's go through with this? What do you think the change in him was? Have you thought about that?
I don't think there was a change. I think he was just pressured with having the date coming up that we would have lost out on the money.
A lot of money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because I was helping him so much with his business, I think he felt like this is what I need to do.
It's more obligation than
right.
love. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from the girl's perspective, I can only imagine it was exciting then. Reset the date, and now everything's on track. So is it easy at that point to overlook all the stuff in the past and just focus on the excitement and the future?
It wasn't easy.
Okay.
I remember we were at the venue picking a date, and we picked it, and he leaned over to me and said, "Aren't you excited? Be happy, smile." And I was scared. I didn't want to set another date and then it fall through again.
Yeah. So you were protecting yourself,
yes.
really.
Yeah.
Any of your friends or people that love you sense that as well? Like, you should be a lot more excited, Sabrina.
No, I think with everyone else I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
It was just with Kevin that I, didn't want to bring up too much wedding stuff and overwhelm him because he had a long day at work, or, but I wanted him to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And he very much did show that he wanted to be a part of it. He wanted to help pick everything out. He wanted a big bridal party. So there was a lot of things that he was involved with.
Yeah. That felt good and sounded good.
Yeah.
And did it ease your fears at each one of those? Did they help ease the fears a little bit?
They did.
So then we get together and we're doing premarital counseling, and which was fun. I always enjoyed working with you both. But then I asked hard questions, and then I did ask one I thought was an easy question. So have you guys decided what you want to do about children? Because from my point of view, it seemed like, well, you were ready to have children. You were coming on 30 and you wanted to get things moving, and he didn't want kids. Is that right, or am I remembering this?
He, the whole way through, said he wanted kids, that he didn't want to have kids right away. It wasn't until things ended with us with the divorce that he said, you want kids and I don't.
Yeah.
So that was a shock to me.
It was a shock, yeah.
Was that a red flag at all for you, that maybe you rationalized as well, that, hey, I want kids, he doesn't want them right away?
Yes.
Is that something you rationalized away, and if so, how?
I guess when talking to him, he never was overly excited about it. And, like you said, he wanted to wait. But again, I love this person, and okay, I'm gonna meet you in the middle. If you don't want to have him right away, then we'll give it some time. But looking back on everything was on his time, his way.
Yeah. And so it's probably easier to rationalize because he didn't say no. He just said, let's wait.
Yes.
So it's hard to argue that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about this time that's really ambiguous.
Right.
Because to you, wait may be a year, and wait may be 7 years for him.
Right.
So, So in this process, what from the time that we started the premarital counseling to the wedding, how long was that? Do you remember how many months transpired between there? Was it like 5, 6, 7?
It's probably a year.
Was it a year?
Yeah, we started the counseling after we postponed the first wedding date.
Yeah.
So about a good year.
So give our listeners a little insight to maybe was it a roller coaster of emotions you have, like feeling good, feeling scared, or were you pretty even for this?
As far as
when you
the
think
new wedding
about,
date?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster. I was definitely I guess my biggest thing was I didn't have to have the big wedding. Of course, my family was helping me out, and I appreciate it. So I wanted to go through with it, And because he wanted that as well. He wanted the big wedding and wanted to plan. But yeah, I just still had those fears. Like, well, what if he backs out again?
Yeah.
So that was still always in the back of my mind.
And the pattern as we look back is that you really never seemed to get what you want. He had a way of making sure that he got what he wanted and making you agree that you wanted the same thing as him. Yeah.
Yes.
Did that ever bother you? Did you ever realize, step back and like, you kind of just said everything's always got to be about him. Did you ever feel that then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
he wanted to be the center of attention and
yeah.
Yeah.
So you picked your bridesmaids. We set a date. And as it got closer to the wedding, tell me, because every couple that get, and I shouldn't say every couple, most couples, as they get closer to the wedding, tensions come and everybody kind of fights a little bit. So did you have some of that normal back and forth, or did it really, the closer it got, seem to be smoother than most?
No, there was definitely a couple of times where we got frustrated with each other, just even meeting at the venue to pay off the balance. He was running late and he wasn't working that day, so I was frustrated that you couldn't make it on time. It wasn't a priority for him, though.
Yeah, is that what it felt like?
Yeah. And, later on, I found out that he had other things going on, so that's why, it wasn't a priority, but...
Yeah, and we're all business related, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're getting closer, and so it's the week of the wedding, and you're probably going through a range of emotions. So was there anything that stood out that you were going through that week, or that he was going through that week, or that family was going through that week, that just stood out that moved you to or away from going through with this wedding?
I think it was the day before the wedding when we had rehearsal. His cousin had given us a gift early, and so I was opening it and really excited and just saying, how grateful we are to have such good people in our lives and family and friends, and they go out of their way for us. And I was just excited to be with everyone for the rehearsal dinner. And I remember leaving, and I just said, "Are you excited?" And he didn't really have much of a reaction, and he just didn't seem like he was that excited about it, like he was into it. And so that was hard for me because it was a special day for us. We should be excited. We should be enjoying it, and I just didn't really feel like he was into it.
So what were you saying to yourself? What was some of that internal talk? That you maybe not said out loud, but it didn't feel right. So what were you saying? Like, should I call it?
I guess I didn't think of it that way as, do I call it? I just thought it was nerves. I don't know. I guess I really didn't think about it too much.
Did you think about confronting him on it at all?
I did. I felt like I did. I would ask him, like, aren't you excited? And, I don't know. I don't.
Well, it was probably some of that same fear, like, we get in a fight now and call it off.
Yeah.
I can't. We're too close.
Right.
Yeah, we're too close to the finish line. And so the night before, you're separate, right?
Yes.
So the groom does see to the next morning. And you're all by yourself that night. I'm wondering what you're laying your head on your pillow the night, 14 hours before you get married. What are you thinking? Because it was the way it ended is like it's not what I was hoping for. What were you thinking, if you can remember back? Did you ever cry?
I didn't.
No?
Well, not till the morning of.
The morning of the wedding?
Of the wedding.
Really?
But it was more of like just happy tears. Like I was excited. I couldn't believe that the day was finally here. And that I prayed about it, and I said, this is what God has planned for us. And
because prior to that, how soon before the wedding both of you you got baptized together?
We did.
Yeah. How long before the wedding was that? Was that
was
months?
About 5-6 months before.
Yeah. You both got baptized together. I saw the pictures on Facebook.
Yes.
And again, that had to seem like an extreme bonding moment.
Yes.
Like we're going through life together,
Yes.
even spiritually we're going through
Yes.
together. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's relive the wedding day a little bit. You get there early, and you heard some news. When did you find out that his groomsman said he had a hard time showing up after the rehearsal dinner at home? Was that way after the fact?
That was way after the fact,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So I didn't know anything the day of the wedding.
Okay.
But the wedding day was amazing. I think I relived it for weeks to a month, just we had the best time.
Yep. I got to tell you, it was one of my favorites to do too. It really was a great day.
Yeah. He put on a good show.
He did, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah. he had us all believing that,
yes.
didn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
But that day, you felt like, okay, everything's right. All
Yes.
those fears were silly. Maybe they were maybe I imagined some of these.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, how long after? Were there cracks in the foundation? So you're married on a Thursday, because if I remember correctly.
A Friday.
Okay, well then
yeah.
I did remember correctly. The rehearsal was on Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. They get married. When? How soon? You didn't take a honeymoon because you planned to.
Yeah, we were going to wait and
Yeah.
take one at the end of the year. So it was probably a good week or two after the wedding when he stopped wearing his ring. And he said it's uncomfortable. It just feels weird. And so he would leave it on the counter when he'd leave to work. And so we bought him a rubber ring that he would wear to the gym. And that started to become an issue. Why don't you want to wear it? What's the big deal? I don't have anything to prove to anyone.
So, as I hear you tell that story, my instant thought is I didn't wear a ring for the first probably 5 years that I got married. I see, and I'm going to call him out right now, that Gary is not wearing a ring either right now. So,
there goes our credibility.
Exactly, right? But
and what did Katie think about that?
Katie hated it. I mean, she constantly. I mean, she wouldn't bring it up very often, but occasionally she'd bring it up and say that it bothered her. And so I'd try wearing my ring again, and then there's one point where I lost my ring.
That was
I took it off in our warehouse at work, and I lost it for a while. I left it on top of a box that was 14 feet in there, and I didn't realize it until probably 6 months later.
He did air quotes when he said
right?
lost Katie. So.
Yes. But I think that's a decently normal thing. As Gary's not wearing his right now, but I am. How'd you work through that? What were you feeling there? I mean, did you rationalize it? Where'd you go?
I did. I was just thinking, am I overreacting? Is it a big deal? So then I just stopped asking about it pretty much and just let it be. But I definitely, in the back of my mind, was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Something didn't feel right to me.
Yeah. And so you go through the next several weeks of probably similar things. What are some other things that you saw there, some red flags possibly that you saw in the next several weeks, some things that you were feeling? I mean, I know every newlywed feels weird when they first get married. I mean, it's a little bit of a different dichotomy,
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you're thinking, that you're feeling, and then some of the red flags that you're seeing based off of that too?
Well, I think because I've heard that so much that, you get married and everything changes, that I was trying to strive to not make anything different. Yes, we're married. It's a piece of paper. I didn't want to change who I was. I didn't want him to change. And so I felt like I, did really well with not changing who I was just because I have his last name now. But, just as the weeks went on after the wedding, he started backing out of plans that we had with my family, staying out later at night, and said he was working and he had to run to one place to another. So it just started to become more excuses and more stories.
Cumulative.
Yeah.
And you tried not to worry about it because you're thinking this maybe just he's scared and he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
So what's it feel like for a newly married bride to be home a lot by themselves when you're thinking this wasn't what I had in mind? What were you thinking? Do you remember? Were you angry? Were you sad?
I was sad. Yeah, I was sad. I wanted to be with him. I wanted to spend time with him, and I felt like, again, it was on his time when he wanted to make, his time available, and so I was sad, but also I was still in the wedding bliss. I was thinking about the wedding and how we had such a great day and how
you're getting your pictures back and you're re-looking at all that.
Just got our pictures back.
So really you had split emotions. I still had the wedding bliss, and then I had this fear that something's not right.
Yes.
So as the story goes, we weren't married very long. How long was before your fears all became exposed as truth? How many weeks were you married?
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
Yeah.
And then what kind of happened? How did everything?
That 7th week, he was just distant with me. not making a lot of time. And I just asked if everything's okay. And he kept saying he's just stressed out about his business and working a lot, and just wasn't very affectionate, wasn't close to me. So then that's when he had said he wanted to go talk with you, Gary.
Yeah.
So he met with you that week, and, he was saying that he was just tired a lot and just wasn't feeling like himself. So I said, well, let's go get your blood work done. Let's get a whole checkup. What's going on? And it's when he talked with you that he said he wanted to take a weekend away and just figure out his thoughts. And, I know you had asked him if he was having doubts about getting married, if he wanted a divorce, and it was no to everything.
Correct. Yeah.
And
he said he was worried that he couldn't be the man you needed him to be.
Right.
Which I thought, I called him on it because I didn't believe that was true.
Right.
To this point, he'd been everything you needed him to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, he said, I'm going to take a weekend and just figure things out. Maybe I just need some time away from working with the business, just shut my phone off. And, so I started helping him look for hotels, and he said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So he gave me a plan of, he was going up north, and he gave me the name of the hotel, and this is where I'm going. And it was that evening when he got there that he sent a short text message, which isn't like him.
Yeah.
He would always call or say he loved me, and he was really short. Checked in, love you, night. That's what he said. So that's when, after that, my gut feeling said something's going on. Something is not right. And so, sure enough, I look at our account and see that he didn't run any transactions for a hotel. And so I did some researching, and with his email, which is not like me, I'm not one to go snooping around, but just something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that's when I found out he was at a different hotel in Phoenix. And so I called him, and he got really defensive and asked why I was checking up on him and how did I know where he was at. And, I just said, it doesn't matter. Just what is going on? Are you with someone? Is somebody there with you? No. So within a few minutes of talking, he just said, I can't do this. I don't want to be married. This isn't working for me. You didn't do anything wrong. You haven't changed. It's me that's going through a change. And so then he said, I'm coming home to talk about it. And we hung up the phone. Before we hung up, I said, you don't need to come home. I don't want to talk to you right now. And he said, no, we're going to talk about this. So he hangs up. So I call him back to tell him, please don't come home. I'm upset. And he was on the other line. It beeps when you're on the other line.
Right.
So I said, who are you talking to? And it's, I'm calling the hotel up north so I can cancel it. I said, don't cancel it. You need to go. So he comes home, and again, he's just really distant, sitting across from me, head down, just, I can't do this. It's not working for me. I don't want kids. You do, which a week before that we had talked about when we wanted to start having kids. And that's really all he can give me. And I just said, who were you with? I wasn't with anyone. And throughout the 4 years that we were together, he was big on bringing things to my attention as far as other people cheating. Oh, yeah, so-and-so cheat. Can you believe that? So-and-so did this. And he knew how I felt about that. That wasn't okay. I wasn't like, oh, that's cool. Good for them. I was like, I can't believe that. That's wrong.
Yeah.
So I never would have thought that he would do anything like that. So then, he left that next morning. He slept on the couch, and I said, you need to figure things out. If you don't want to be married, then we're done. We're not doing this back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so he leaves the next morning, and I look at our phone records and find one number that he's calling consistently. Yeah. Even the night before when I had called him and he was on the other line, he was talking to that person. And so, I call him and ask him about it. And again, he gets super defensive, and it's nothing. It's just a friend, and we're going through the same thing. So I'm just talking to her about it. And I said, well, I'm your wife. You should be talking to me about it, not somebody else.
Right.
And so, pretty much from then on, he didn't move back in, and I just said, we're done. And he obviously wanted to be done. He wanted to be with someone else, but it probably wasn't until a good 3 weeks to a month of constantly talking to him and saying, you're with this person, that he finally said, yes, we are together. So,
did and I know we kind of talked about this when we talked about a marriage and relationships recently.
Yeah.
Did you guys have that transparency to be able to see each other's text messages, to phone?
No.
Phone.
He could look at mine anytime he wanted, and I've always said it's there for you. It's open. I have nothing to hide. But he was very protective of his phone.
Was that a red flag to you?
Yes.
Was it how'd you rationalize that? I mean, did it upset you? Is it something you just pushed to the side and said?
I pushed it to the side. Just.
What'd you tell yourself?
I think I knew that if I looked and if I would have dug and tried to,
afraid of what I'd find.
Right. I was afraid of what I would find, but
Did you feel like that intensified over time, or was it always a component of your relationship that he had access and you didn't, and
it intensified? Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then do you immediately work back over the last 7 weeks, 7 months, and start thinking, things are starting to add up now. I wonder if he ever loved me, ever was faithful to me, ever. Did you do that?
Yes.
Routine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then what were you, when you looked in the mirror, what did you think and say about Sabrina? What was going on inside of you? I mean, you had the emotional being crushed, but did you start to take responsibility from that?
I did. I think the first
what are the things you said?
Week or two, I just said it was, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want to be with me? Yeah. But then,
why am I so easy to leave? Why am I
right?
Yeah.
And I think it was probably maybe a week after everything happened is when I came and talked to you. And that was the first thing I remember you saying, and that stuck, is that it's not you.
Yeah. So after finding out that information, again, you caused you to look back. What you know now in hindsight, how long had that been going on? How long had he been lying, and with that one certain relationship?
Well, come to find out, yeah. I mean, it was on and off for years. For many years. I don't know. I mean, she had moved closer to town where we live at the beginning of the year, so I know at least 5-6 months recently.
Wow. Then, and I will say, having been part of your story, when I told you it wasn't about you, I also remember telling you that I do this for a living and I don't usually get fooled much, but he was good enough. I believed him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all my families and friends were just as shocked because totally they would have never guessed that.
Yeah, totally shocked. So, again, you weren't some naive little girl. You were just one of many who got fooled. So, talk a little bit about that process then. Now it's, what, do I get divorced really quick? What are you thinking your next step of action should have been, or was it?
Well, I mean, he... when he came home that evening and said that he wanted a divorce, of course I was upset. What are you doing? We just got married. My family just spent all this money. But I mean, right after that, of finding everything out about this other girl, all the months after that of me crying and going through what I went through, it wasn't because I wanted that person back. It was like, how could you do this? How could you be so cruel?
Yeah.
Because I definitely didn't want to be back with him. Yeah. If you've already done this and shown this to me, that's who you are.
I don't think there's a worse feeling than my last couple of years has all been a lie.
Right.
I mean, you really feel duped, don't you? Yeah.
Well, and I think that it shows your strength in that too, because I think the easy thing to do is to come back and say, okay, I want you back. I want to do that because that's comfortable. That's easy. That's easier than okay. Hey, the last couple of years have been a complete, complete sham from what I thought it was.
Right.
So being able to work through that and being able to be strong enough not to desire that, I think is commendable.
And I will just say, not because you're sitting here, because your ears have probably burned in the last couple of years, because I've talked about you to other girls in similar situations, that the process you took of rewriting your story and making yourself better, I think is admirable, and I applaud you even on the podcast for that. But talk about the difficulty, and all of a sudden now I got to worry about me.
Right.
And what were some of the battles you had in your head as you move forward? Like, it's easy just to sit there with a blanket on the couch and cry, but you knew you had to get up and do stuff.
Right.
So how did you fight that?
I definitely did that. I feel like there was a couple of weeks where I was getting really down and depressed, I would go to work, come home, just lay there and cry, didn't go to the gym, didn't do anything that I would normally do. And I just kept replaying it in my head, just kept thinking about it, like, what could I have done differently?
So now looking back, what could you have done differently, in all honesty?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, just had more of a voice and spoke up about the red flags.
Maybe
or
be more intentional and proactive before this,
right.
But there's nothing you could have done to change the outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think because I started journaling, you had mentioned, why don't you journal? That every day I was saying the same thing. It was the same. How could you do this? How, why did he do this to me?
So you got tired of reading it.
Yeah, because I wasn't, it was the same thing. I wasn't changing anything.
Yeah.
And then I just realized that I was robbing myself of who I was and everyone else. It got to a point where I would get around my family and friends, and that's all we talked about. I was tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
Of course, I think you have to go through that process of talking about it, crying about it.
Correct.
Having that support. But then you have to be the one that cuts that off and says, okay, we're done talking about it. I need to make new memories. I need to be me, be that happy, loving person. Because then other people don't want to be around you either after a certain point, I think, of just...
They know what to expect.
Right.
That's that old saying that you can't finish the book if you keep rereading the same chapter.
Right.
So, Jeremiah, you had something you wanted to say?
So you talked about your support there. So for someone who might be going through it, what were some of the things that you valued in the support that you got? What are some of the things that you enjoyed about it? I mean, what were some of the things that you absolutely needed in that time?
To start, like at the beginning of it, I needed somebody to cry to. I just needed somebody to sit there and listen to me. But then it was nice when somebody said, hey, let's go do this or let's go do that.
To
get my mind off of it. And then I went through a period of, okay, everyone thinks that I'm doing better, which I am. So everyone else is making plans and I don't have anything to do. But then I had to realize that nobody knows what I'm going through. I have to express it. I have to say, hey, let's go do this. Let's go do that. Like I had to make that effort to say, I need to get my head up, in a different place. And,
well, for so long, he controlled you. You really never got to do what you want. I mean, it wasn't just then. For a long time, you didn't get to do what you wanted or say what you wanted to say. So you had to take that power back.
Yeah.
And your friends and your support group encourage that?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
What did someone give you that you didn't need? Like someone always thinks they're saying something right, and it really hurts. I think their intentions are good. Did you have any of that you can recall?
Yeah, from one friend. She's just like, I knew I should have said something the first time he, postponed the wedding date. And at that point, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I remember you, Gary, saying that, oh, you're going to be so much stronger from this, and you'll look back and you'll thank him. And I remember looking at you thinking, there is no way there is no way I'm going to thank him for this one day.
So as you sit here over a year from that, what can you thank him for?
For all of it, for putting me through that, and
help you become stronger.
Yes, I became so much stronger from it. I still, I have moments that I think back about it because we just came up. It was a year since everything happened. Since the whole divorce.
Yeah.
And I think back like I can't believe that I got through it. I don't know how I did, because there was days that I'm like, what am I going to do next? Like I felt so lost and like I was never going to get past this or never get out of that storm.
Yeah.
So it's a good feeling.
Were you worried about the effect? Like, is every guy in the future going to pay for his mistake? Like, I'm going to be a feminist and
no.
You didn't punish all the other male morons out there. No. Okay.
Well, and what have you taken away from this experience that you'll take with you in future relationships? That
good question.
That I guess changes how you'll approach it.
I think I'm a giver. I want to please my partner. I want to do everything that I can, and that's fine. But, I have to learn that they need to meet me, not necessarily halfway, but they need to put in the work as well. Yeah. And that's what go ahead.
How do you make sure that happens? I mean, it's one thing to say this is what I'm going to be about, but how do you tangibly make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of the next time, that the other person isn't implementing their will on you, and you're not on their timeline anymore, like you were with your ex.
Yeah.
You have a certain awareness now?
I do, and I feel like I have more of a voice. If something bothers me or I feel like it is on their time, which I new to the dating again. I just barely started dating, 5-6 months ago. And so I think it's just having a voice. And if something makes me feel uncomfortable or I feel unsure about, that I'm communicating it with them and just letting them know, like, I want to communicate,
and that would be one of the things you have to thank him for, that the power that he's brought out of you because of that. Yeah. So we talked about it earlier. So if there's, I told you off air, there are actually 2 females I'm going to make listen to this when it airs because they're going through similar things. What would you say to someone who's in the dating process going through some of those things? Maybe someone who's already been married and questioning things. What would you tell them as a support system? That was a deep question. Yeah.
To have a voice and don't feel like that's your only option. That's the only person that you can be with. There's plenty of people out there, and to just know you have to be confident in who you are.
Yeah, perfect.
And
would you say don't be afraid of speaking up? Don't be afraid of making things uncomfortable.
Yes,
don't be afraid that this person's going to walk away because if they're going to walk away over you speaking up.
Right.
It's worth it.
Yeah. Right. So in retrospect, it would have been better if you walked away when the first time you broke up than going through all that.
Or that I would have said, you know what, if you want to postpone that's I'm done. If you don't know right now today that you want to be with me and I'm the one, and
because what I've seen in you that I want to champion out loud for that I didn't see initially is I truly believe that you believe you deserve better in life.
Yes.
And that's where the power of your voice comes from.
Right.
And I'm not sure that you liked Sabrina before, but I think you like her today, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a couple of good things about Sabrina today that you like when you look in the mirror? What do you think?
Just realizing my strength. That's the biggest thing. It's just that I could get through something like that.
Yeah.
Because it was the worst year of my life.
Yep.
And I think it brought me closer to God.
Yeah.
I went to church all the time. I would in the middle of church start crying with a song, or I leave and just break down in my car. But I prayed every day to God to just give me strength.
Yeah. And you started reading some things that would build that too. And we'd have conversations about that. And like you would text me and say, you'd ask me a God question. I'm like, ooh, that was too tough. Maybe you should journal that and figure out your answer. And you always did. I'm always amazed when I have clients that actually do what I asked them to do, and you were one of those. So again, I applaud you for that. Jeremy, anything you want to say? I mean, I think her story's a powerful one, don't you?
Yeah. You just talked about your faith, and that was going to be one of the questions that I was going to ask is, initially, what was your response towards God? Did you run to him? Did you fade away? Were you angry with him? Were you frustrated? Where did you go? And then how did you move to where you are now, if it differed?
Well, I feel like I'd always end up praying during the tough times, and it made me realize that going through that's when I needed him the most, and I just sat there and I cried and God, please fix this, please help me, give me strength. But it just made me realize that I don't need to pray just during the hard times. I need to pray all the time and be grateful. And another thing I wanted to add is that I don't know. I think it was you that mentioned help somebody else out when you're going through something.
Yeah. I said, remember, your trial is not just for you; it's for other people.
Right, and that was huge for me. I did some volunteering at a shelter, and that I remember leaving there just crying, just couldn't believe what these people are going through and their lives and them living on the street, and it made me realize that there's other people that are worse off or have other bigger issues than I do.
It's all perspective, isn't
right?
It?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you look at it as a boulder in your way, and really it's a pebble.
Yeah.
So when you help someone else out, you gain that different perspective of what your situation looks like compared to someone else who's going through something tougher.
I would say that would be the number one thing for anyone going through it is to really help somebody else out, to do something like that.
Get outside of their self for
because
once.
that was huge for me.
Oh, good. Well, again, I'm proud of you, Sabrina, and I appreciate. I mean, when we were talking about having guests doing this, I told Jeremy right away, I have a girl that I'd really love to have her tell her story. I wasn't sure you were going to do it, but you did. Again, I even give you props for having the courage to do this because I know you were a little nervous.
Yes.
And you didn't come across that way, and you won't when Jeremy gets to know the editing. I know. Anything you want to say in closing, Jeremy?
Just that if you're going through something like this, I mean, it doesn't have to be a marriage. It doesn't have to be a divorce. But if you have a relationship out there where you feel insignificant, where you feel that the other person's throwing some red flags your way, where you feel like there's just something not right, that you would somehow try to figure out what's going on, that you would figure out how to change that, whether it be through a mediator or a counselor like a Gary or having a good support system like Sabrina had, that you would somehow find some people to talk to about with it, and hopefully be able to reconcile it and not just let it go and let it continue the way that it is. There needs to be some kind of finality to that, whether it be a change needs to be made or you need to change your perspective and your mindset. But I would just say to anyone out there who's going through that, seek out like-minded people, seek out some
take advantage of your support group that you have already.
Seek out someone to help you and to guide you through it. In whatever way, fashion that looks like, and someone who's been through it. And so hopefully this story was something that was encouraging.
And if you'd like to send Sabrina just an encouraging note or a thank you for sharing her story, you can do it through all of our social media outlets, which are
so you can get a hold of her / us to talk to her through Facebook at facebook.com/RP podcast. Also on Instagram at RP Podcast, and then on Twitter at the RP Podcast. We also have our website, so you can listen to any of the last podcasts that we've done leading up to this at www.rppodcast.com/podcast. Took me a second there, and then lastly, if you have a story to tell, we'd love to hear from you on any of those places. So we would love to hear from you there as well. But all that to say is, like Gary said, this trial isn't necessarily for Sabrina, but it's for other people who might be going through it. So that's why we want to share these things. I think that's how testimonies work in a church, or should work in a church. How
they should work. Yeah.
It is that people go through things and they share, and other people can glean and really get something out of what they've gone through, and hopefully it helps them through it. And so hopefully this helped you through it as well. And or if you know someone who's going through it, you can share this with them so that they can hear those stories as well. So
and Sabrina gets to be our honorary very first interviewed guest on RP Podcast.
All right.
Yes. So we can't wait for
she
you
gets
guys.
nothing for that, in case you want to know. But
we can't wait for you guys to hear this, and hopefully it does help people and change lives. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.